Hello and welcome to Let's Talk F1 2015, the year-long series where I'm going to be analysing the cars aerodynamically and for pace during practice up ahead before the Grand Prix itself for every single race weekend this year so that you guys can be more informed ahead of the race. Today we're going to be doing this for the Chinese Grand Prix, and in fact also, as you'll see, we're also going to be able to analyse qualifying because this is being uploaded on a Saturday. That's because I just flew in back from my holiday at the end of the week, so I was a bit jet-lagged on Friday, didn't really manage to catch the practice live, so I had to watch some highlights later on, and so it took me some time to actually cobble together some analysis for you guys, but hopefully you don't mind the delay, and this actually means we can discuss a little bit more maybe ahead of what happened with qualifying, what that might mean for the race. So let's get straight into all the teams and analysing what went on in practice and then their qualifying show, and we'll look ahead to the predictions for the race at the very end. So I'm going to start off by talking about the world champions Mercedes, who have brought the biggest update of the weekend, which is a completely brand new front wing, and they've had to fast track this from their development program. Looks like they've ramped up things a little bit after they got shaken a little bit by their loss to Ferrari at the Malaysian Grand Prix. Obviously teams have a kind of plan throughout the year when they're going to bring upgrades, but it looks like Mercedes felt the need to kind of fast track this one straight to China to try and combat anything Ferrari might have, any sort of momentum they might have, although China is a very different track and I highly doubt Ferrari will have the same pace here, but we'll talk about that later when we get onto them. But looking back at the Mercedes front wing, all brand new front wing, and the biggest thing is really from... Well, let's see. You can see there's kind of one kind of winglet coming up the side that cuts through the Petronas sign, looking at the left-hand side of the front wing. And to the left of that, all that cascading, all the little kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. You can see 5 little curved, sort of half circle kind of curvatured wings on the left-hand side all the way to the end plate. They're all brand new. But essentially, the parts in black, in bare carbon fiber that haven't been painted on with any kind of silver or chromish paint or any purplish or turquoise paint. All pure just carbon fiber, naked carbon fiber. That is the new essence part of the wing. I mean, the rest of it is a bit new as well to kind of work with the rest of that, but that left-hand section, that outward section in black is the biggest part, and that's essentially to create big vortexes to try and get around the front tires. You can sort of see the curvature slightly on the left and the right. You can see the kind of wings that curve around each other in a circular fashion, sort of on the left-hand side obviously curve outwards left to try and essentially push the air around on the left, around the outside of that right front tire, and then the same and complete opposite on the right hand side, on the right of the front wing. So basically they're trying to create a vortex that kind of swirls around and goes around the tire, and this is what they're trying to do with it. Before they had very straight kind of endings to the wings towards the end plate, and I'll get onto the comparison before I talk a little bit more about more Mercedes updates. They've also got a new brake duct, so essentially they had quite a flat brake duct before. They still got quite a flat brake duct here. You can see, you can't actually see the new upgrade, but essentially behind that front wing flap with the Petronas, they've got a little flick on the brake duct as well, and that just helps air come through. If it's coming towards the brakes, it just won't cool the brakes as well. It will also get channeled towards the rest of the car. Obviously Mercedes don't have a blown wheel nut like Ferrari, McLaren and Red Bull do, so I don't know why they're not opting to do one. Maybe because it does mean they get a slightly faster pit stop. I think people have said that that's why the pit stops might be a bit slower this year, because of these big teams doing blown wheel nuts. So it looks like Mercedes are trying to get gains from the brake ducts in other ways by making a highly more complex brake duct to try and channel air towards the end of that car. But the biggest thing is this new front wing. Really nice work, actually, really nice. So this is probably not the best shot, but I couldn't find a better shot in the short space of time I'm making this video. But there's some really nice shots where you can really see the curvature of all these little wings coming together. Obviously the actual wings themselves are curved into half circles, but the entire array of about 7 slots there, I mean some of the slots are hidden by the kind of cascades on the top there. You can't see all 7 little slots there, but all 7 really curve nicely together. You can see actually the curving motion of where they want the air to go. And so, as I said, I wanted to compare the old front wings, just so if you're not so clear on it, you can really see the difference now. Huge difference to where that naked carbon fiber is. Obviously, the one on the right is the new one, and on the left, this is actually the launch spec front wing. On the left-hand side, you'll see the rest of the picture actually is the launch spec car. But this obviously changed a little bit in Malaysia and Australia as well, but it's pretty much what they've been running for the last 2 races. So, you can compare this to the new front wing, and it is so so much more complex, this new front wing. And really, you would have thought maybe they couldn't make it any more complex, but they've sort of gone like half their own style, half Red Bull style, because Red Bull have been known to put this many wings into their front wings. I mean, here, Mercedes' new element has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actual elements of the wing and 7 slots in that end of the wing. And Red Bull have run about 5 or 6 actual wings on their front wing. Mercedes only usually opt for about 4. Looks like they've kind of gone for 5 because they've kind of got the bottom of the front wing split. You can see it from this angle much better. But you can see there's a little dip on the right-hand side, just where after the Petronas sign, there's a little dip of where the silver ends and where the naked carbon fiber starts, and it's sort of a half wing, whereas on the old front wing, sort of nice one smooth motion. But then again, this little dip actually helps cut in air. Air through there will just go straight through because it's just a nice little cut. It's like works like a little channel, almost like a gorge. If you have water going through a gorge, imagine the air going through that little gorge V section, and it'll just pass straight through. But these vortex generators are really going to help them get air around the front tire, and obviously improve downforce and general kind of drivability as well, because if you're getting air around the tires, that also means it goes to the rest of the car, and that helps for your balance as well. So Mercedes ramping up development a bit after maybe being rattled by Ferrari. They look pretty strong in practice, obviously in qualifying as well, very, very strong. 1-2 once again for Mercedes. Hamilton on pole once again. I really think that this year, unfortunately, we're going to have to hope that Ferrari can keep it up, because I don't think there's going to be any sort of fight like last year with Rosberg and Hamilton. I think Hamilton pretty much buried Rosberg in terms of his kind of mental game, in terms of I think Rosberg just can't come back from what happened last year. So I think Hamilton really has I think he has this season. I mean, it's his to lose, really. I mean, unless Ferrari create miracles, I think it's Hamilton's championship once again. I think it's going to be his race in China, because as we actually move on, let's move on to Ferrari so that we can actually discuss this a bit more. Moving on to Ferrari, as I said before in the video, you know, China's a very different track, and it may not be a great one for Ferrari versus Mercedes. In Malaysia, the hot temperatures meant Ferrari could really exploit their advantages in their car, which is looking after the tires. But here at China, it's not about rear tires, it's all about front tires. It's a front limited track, which means they need to try and get temperature into the tires. It's usually quite a cold circuit, and the actual issue of getting heat into your tires is the issue, not kind of dissipating heat out of your rear ones. So Ferrari, you know, they may struggle a little bit compared to Mercedes. I think Mercedes are much better at that. Mercedes have always gone well at China. Obviously, you remember their first win since coming back to Formula 1 was at China with Rosberg in 2012. So they've always gone good at China. It's been a good track for them, and in the past, their car has been very good at front limited circuits, and they've actually, in 2013, if you remember, they had big troubles with any rear limited circuits, like Spain, Bahrain. You know, they had a lot of troubles, but then on the front limited ones, they were completely fine. This year, obviously, and last year, their car is all round very good at every single circuit, so that's not an issue. So now it's Ferrari's issue. Can they get heat into their front tires? Can they perform? And, you know, in qualifying, Vettel did manage to get third. Raikkonen really messed it up once again in qualifying. He just seems to mess it up in the last few stages of qualifying. Can't get it right up to the front where he needs to be, and he was missing quite a lot of apexes today in qualifying. Not a very good session for him. I bet he will be disappointed. But I think with Mercedes locking out the front row, showing their pace, I mean, Hamilton with a 135, whatever it was, I can't exactly remember, excuse me for that, but, you know, he completely rocks it, and I don't think Ferrari will have a chance for this race. Also, I can't remember the guy's name, but the Ferrari team principal, I keep forgetting his name. I mean, it shouldn't be a very hard name to remember. It's quite a unique name, but I just keep forgetting it. But the team principal said that they've got no chance to try and actually win the race, and that the best thing possible will be to get the second row in qualifying, and then do what they can do from the race. Obviously, if Vettel gets a good start, maybe he can start, or Rosberg, who's in second place, but we'll have to see how that goes. But I really have no hopes for Ferrari getting another win, or even second place. I think it will be a solid, maybe hopefully third place for Ferrari once more here today at the Chinese Grand Prix tomorrow, I should say, on Sunday. But on screen right now, we've got a little picture of the Ferrari front wing, obviously from the back end. You can see that square is where the front wing would attach to the bulkhead, and you can see the camera pods as well. But I just wanted to show you a nice little detail here. You don't often see this in Formula 1. You don't see the back of the front wings. Obviously, you can see the nice cascades and the wings coming on the Ferrari, but you can also see the slots underneath the rear wing, which you never see on the cars when they're driving around. You maybe see a hint of them on the McLaren and the Red Bull because they go quite aggressive with these wings underneath. Well, not wings, these veins underneath, these turning veins underneath. But here you can see a really nice detail from behind. And, you know, again, this kind of... Again, you got also see, what was it? I even forgot to mention. If you look at just under the bulkhead kind of square, you can see the two winglets coming out that look like an L backwards on the left and then a normal L on the right. Again, those are turning veins underneath the nose that help channel air underneath the car. And this just reiterates that actually a lot of the aerodynamics in the Formula 1 car you never actually see. A lot of it is done underneath the car. A lot of air movement underneath the car towards the side pods and the turning veins by these wings. And these are very important areas. And if teams don't get them right, then it can compromise the car. These are very, very important, just as important as the front elements of the front wing and the rear wing and whatnot, and the side pod. So just a thought I'd show you a nice detail. But that is a little roundup of Mercedes and Ferrari and their pace and practice, what I think will be happening. I think you can probably already guess my predictions, but we'll get onto that later. But that has been my little analysis of those two teams. We're now going to move on to Lotus, another team to actually do quite a big change on their front end. They've changed their front wing on the bottom right. That is the old front wing, so you can see straight away that on the new one on the top left, the actual main wings where the red wings are much longer, swoop down and curve a lot more, whereas the old ones kind of stopped through. So this is sort of emulating what we've seen Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren kind of do, and it's good signs for Lotus to see that finally maybe they don't need to keep on worrying about reliability and they can actually step up their program and try and catch up with the other guys in terms of the different concepts of aerodynamics at the moment. Not too much else has changed, maybe a few different angles on the cascades, bit of a different finish as well on the carbon fiber, or it might just be the lighting. Maybe it looks a little less shinier, but the actual wing itself just a lot more curved, and this will mean any air going through. Obviously it sort of looks like they just cropped it on the old one, so you can imagine if air is going through there, just going to pass straight through. Now with these new curved extended bits, the air will actually get affected there through. And also on the top of the front, on top of the front wing, it looks like the top wing, it looks like the ridge on the top is also got a little bit larger there. But yeah, nice new development for Lotus. Good to see that they're trying to improve on the aerodynamics and not just relying on the engine to try and help them improve. Obviously they've got a lot of work to do because the engine just hasn't done all of the work. They still have to work on the actual chassis itself because you've got likes of Toro Rosso, Sauber, who are looking really good, and Force India, who no doubt come back, and also McLaren. They will catch up eventually. So Lotus need to keep on their toes. Obviously it was a very poor season last year. I'm sure they're all much happier this year, but they still got to do a lot of work and they want to get back to where they even were in 2013. Moving on to McLaren, not much has been said about McLaren this weekend. They've had a very quiet weekend. Unfortunately, you know, the progress they made from pre-season to Australia was huge. From Australia to Malaysia, equally big, and they were closing down the gap to the actual grid itself. But it looks like from Malaysia to China, like they even informed the media, the jump hasn't been that big. And I was actually quite surprised to see media outlets like BBC and Sky comment on how surprised they were at McLaren not making a step up and how disappointed they were in terms of, I believe in Sky, I think the analysts were saying during practice, you know, I don't know why they've, you know, not made a huge step forward again, and it's a bit worrying, and maybe, you know, they're saying that things are improving, but it's really not. Well, McLaren told all the press well before the Chinese Grand Prix, a week before, that they weren't expecting the same sort of jump from Australia to Malaysia, the same to happen for this Grand Prix. They said that, and yet they were surprised. So that's another thing that's not really to do with Formula 1. But let's get back to the actual Formula 1 action. McLaren, a little update on the front wing. You can see the cascades on the top of the towards the front of the wing have changed. Before you had the kind of three elements, but it was a lot longer, and it looks like they've tightened it up a little bit, and they've done some aero paint, as you can see underneath that. Looking at the cascades, you can actually see the ridges that I was talking about in the Ferrari there, just underneath the wing. Hopefully you can see it on the YouTube video. You can see 3 or 4 little ridges. Those are the underwings on the front wing there. So that's very important to the front wing. They've also been doing some aero work on the inside front tyre. Obviously, they've got the blown wheel nut as well, so they want to maybe look at how that's being affected, and also just to see how their quite smooth flat brake duct is working and how their suspension might be affected as well. But it also just, it's good to see McLaren starting to do some aero stuff as well as just working on reliability, because, you know, if they need to start improving every area. It's not just the engine, like they've said. They're one team. It's not just the Honda engine. They also do need to improve the chassis a little bit. You know, they said that they themselves believe the chassis is brilliant. Obviously, analysts beg to differ. They feel that maybe also they do need to improve that quite drastically as well. But I think, you know, if they're doing the right steps, I think they're working together, and I think they're slowly improving. I'm hoping there'll be bigger, even bigger leaps in Europe, like we've seen from Australia to Malaysia, where they, you know, from Australia to Malaysia, they gained like 1, even 2 seconds in terms of performance. So they can make the same steps in Europe when the big upgrades come along, and hopefully Honda can get a bit more involved in the upgrades to their engines, and they start using the tokens. I think we could hopefully see McLaren start to just creep up on the midfield and then eventually get to where they want to be, maybe. But I don't know how long it's going to be. It may take more than this season, but we'll have to really see. But you know, McLaren's still pushing on, and you know what, they're one of the teams that brought Aero updates, so I'm very happy with that. Moving on to Red Bull, and they've got a little upgrade on the end plate. You can't exactly see it from this shot, but I just thought this was a really nice shot of the front wing detail. But the end plate on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see just where you can see just about see the T of the Total on the end plate there. So they just made a different kind of shape to it. It's a lot more kind of smooth and curved, I guess, for a bit of a lower drag kind of end plate for China, having that long straight. Red Bull, obviously, they're going to struggle once more here at China. They've had a lot of rear brake issues, with Kvyat especially in practice going off completely, their hairpin with the brake issues, and they've had to solve something on Ricciardo's car during free practice 3 as well, ahead of qualifying. So Red Bull, again, struggling as well, and there's more rumours that they might be leaving Formula 1, yada, yada, yada. It's really not been a great season so far for Red Bull, and they're just trying to push on, but, you know, I just hope it gets better for them. I mean, it'd be nice if they can start competing again instead of just whining. But they're going to push on. The Renault engine's still not up to scratch, but also hints, you know, Renault have been saying the chassis is not up to scratch as well. Maybe so, you know, they still are bringing upgrades, so it's not like it's a perfect car, just waiting for the right engine. And they still haven't actually been able to pass their crash test for their new stubbier Mercedes-like nose, which is very surprising because Mercedes have managed to do it, unless Red Bull have gone for a very different, radical sort of stubby nose, which is very thin and a lot less kind of, well, I would say chubby underneath, like the Mercedes one to pass the crash test, and I think that's why they're having maybe troubled. But they're persisting to try and pass that that nose. I'll be very interested to see if it ever comes, and when it comes, what it'll look like, because you know, it will make some gains for them. It does make a bit of a difference on the nose, not too much, but it does make a bit of a difference. And also, to be frankly, the way they've done the livery this year, the Red Bull front wing nose really doesn't look that great. Tell me what you think of that. But yeah, Red Bull and Toro Rosso both struggling. Toro Rosso failing to get into the Q3 session today in China, which is a bit disappointing. I would have liked to maybe have seen Max Verstappen get up there, but I think that's just the limit of the car on this track. And the Toro Rosso did not look great out there. Looked like it was very, very oversteering in some of the corners and understeer in other places. Not what you want from a car. Understeer and oversteer together is not a good combo. But finally, moving on to my last team of the video for analysis. I won't be mentioning the other teams because essentially they didn't really bring too many upgrades, or the news outlets didn't really talk about them too much. So I'm not going to be talking about them because otherwise I'll just be waffling on. But here we are at Sauber. Very impressive so far in 2015. I've been very, very impressed. And I will admit, I was one of the people who just thought they were going to be crap again. But they've done really well. I guess the Ferrari engine has also boosted them so much. But, you know, despite all their money problems, there is signs of good upgrades here, and they're doing well to actually bring these upgrades, and they look a lot more complex than the ones they had before. So on the right hand side is the front wing they had before, Australia and Malaysia, and the left hand side is the new one they've got for China. Very, very good. Much better than the one on the right. I think you can even see, even if you don't know too much, you can just tell the left one is a lot more complex. You've got the curves going down, much like most of the top teams. Instead of the middle two wings now forming a huge kind of flat surface in the middle now, there are actually 3 separate wings on the top and then 2 wings on the bottom. So they've added one more wing element there in between. So that's really nice to see. They've got a bit of a long kind of cascade going across across the wing, a bit more of curvature on the bottom of the wing. I think you'll see a little bit more curved, I think, in my opinion, but definitely a lot more complex for Sauber. And also to the cascades, they've added one more turning vane to the cascade on that outside right. You can see that extra black cascade coming through. So really nice developments for Sauber. I'm sure fans will be kind of happy that they're bringing upgrades like this. It's good to see they're sort of back on their feet in some sort of way, bringing kind of upgrades like this. And the Ferrari engine upgrades have worked really well for them, and they're just kind of playing it to their strengths and really managing some great results so far in the races and in qualifying. And I think they'll be on for another good one, and I do hope they score some more good points. It's really nice to actually see them back to scoring points. You know, obviously, you know, we can all make fun of them on Twitter and whatnot in the community, but it's always nice to see these teams do well when they can, you know, with less cash. So good on for Sauber. So that was the last analysis of the video in terms of aerodynamic upgrades and looking at practice and qualifying. So now this is coming to the end of the video where I ask you guys to give me your top 10 predictions for the race. Comment below what you think the top 10 will be. Always interested to read. I may not reply to any of them, but I do love reading them just to see what my subscribers think about the race ahead and what's going to be happening. I'm going to tell you my top 3. Surprise, surprise, I'm going to be putting Lewis Hamilton in first, Rosberg in second, and you know what? I think I'm gonna have to put Vettel in third. I was maybe thinking of putting a Williams there, just a little surprise, but the Williams has been struggling a little bit in qualifying and in general in the race. I mean, they did get it a bit higher up than Malaysia, and actually, you know what? I think Bottas could maybe spring a surprise on Vettel, but Vettel was quite impressive to get third. I was impressed. I thought he wouldn't be able to do it. I thought Williams would have locked out the second row after the first runs in Q3, but I was impressed by him to get third place there. I honestly thought he would have got only fifth. So I'm going to give it again the same prediction I gave in Malaysia. I know I got it wrong in Malaysia horribly. We all did with Vettel winning, but I honestly don't think Vettel has a chance this time. I don't think any car has a chance this time because it's a very different circuit. It's a circuit where Mercedes can flex their muscles very largely. There's no tyre limitations here at China in terms of only just, you know, having to pump up the temperatures for the front tyres and make sure you're not understeering too much, which there was a lot on the Ferrari, definitely with Kimi Raikkonen. He was having a lot of chronic understeer through his laps. So I think it will be Mercedes day once more. Unfortunately, I think it will be another boring Chinese Grand Prix. But hey-ho, I hope I am severely wrong. But we'll see how that goes. Once again, comment below what you thought of this video. If you did enjoy the analysis and you are enjoying it and it is informative, then do tell me. I do want to know if I'm actually, you know, informing people and they're learning stuff. It's great if people can learn new stuff from these videos. That's what I'm aiming for. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, then do give it a like. Remember to comment below your top 10 predictions. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for more Formula 1 action, real life and video game action. Remember, this is a year-long series. Just do subscribe for more analysis throughout the year on every single race. So yeah, I've been Aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time.